Good evening, everyone. Please be seated. So item 1 is Thought of the Day. So I'm going to invite my chaplain, Father Philip, to now read that out. Thank you, Father Philip.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I came across these words from Thomas More in Utopia. What you can't put right, you must try to make as little as wrong as possible. For things will never be perfect until human beings are perfect. I'd like to share with you an extract from St. Paul's letter to the Ephesians. This then is what I pray, kneeling before the Father, from whom every family, whether spiritual or natural, takes its name. Out of his infinite glory, may he give you the power through his Spirit for your hidden self to grow strong, so that Christ may live in your hearts through faith, and then planted in love and built on love, you will, with all the saints, have strength to grasp the breadth and the length, the height and the depth, until knowing the love of Christ, which is beyond all knowledge, you're filled with the utter fullness of God. And so let us pray. Father of all, in whose hands lies every human heart and the rights of all people, look with favour, we pray, upon those gathered here in council, elected to govern with authority over us, that throughout the world the prosperity of peoples, the assurance of peace, the freedom of faith, may through your gift be made secure. For we pray in thanksgiving for the unique gift and talents of all that are gathered here. For each one brings a wonderful vision of the ideals to which we all aspire. Assist us to listen to each other, to be confident with each other in hope, to achieve the potential that lies in the future by the deliberations expressed in this council chamber. For we unite in confidence as citizens of one world, to look to the potential of the future, the constant development of your creation, as we search for the unique value of every human being whom we serve for your greater glory, through Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen.
Thank you very much, Father Philip. We'll now move on to item 2, apologies. Can I ask the relevant members to confirm if we have any apologies, please? Councillor Rachel Ellis.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We have apologies mainly for illness or unavoidable prior commitment. Councillor Pauline Allen, Councillor Jenny Hollingsworth, Councillor Julie Nayuk, Councillor Roxanne Ellis, and Councillor Paul Feeney. In addition, I've received apologies for possible lateness from Councillor David Brocklebank, but he is expecting to be here. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Sam Smith.
All present and correct, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Hughes.
Also all present and correct. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
And Councillor Whiting.
Both here, sir.
Thank you. So I'll move on to item 3, the Mayor's announcements. I was pleased to attend Coppice Lodge Care Home with my consort last Friday for their annual summer fair. Thank you to the care home manager, Kenneth, for the warm welcome. It was a real pleasure to chat to so many residents at this event who shared many stories about growing up in Arnold and in other parts of our borough. Thank you to all the staff and volunteers for the effort they put into the event for everyone in the community to enjoy. I was also pleased to join Nottingham Pride in my official capacity as Mayor over the weekend. The event was a joyous occasion for all those in attendance, celebrating our diverse communities across Nottingham and Nottinghamshire. Thank you to Nottingham Frontrunners and Nottinghamshire Fire and Rescue Service for allowing me to parade alongside them at the event, and congratulations to the organisers for creating a safe and inclusive event for everyone. On Sunday, I attended Springwater Golf Club in Calverton for their annual Gedling Borough Council Gedling Borough Challenge, which has been going on since 2002. It was a real pleasure to meet everyone from the competing clubs from right across the borough, and I'd like to thank Club Captain Brad Field for the warm welcome and for kindly arranging a generous donation to the Mayor's charity, the Motor Neurone Disease Association and Motor Neurone Disease Association Nottingham. Thank you. So we'll now move to item 4, declaration of interest. Are there any declarations of interest from members? No? Thank you. I will now move on to the next item. So we now move on to item 5, the local government reorganisation in Nottingham and Nottinghamshire. The recommendations are on pages 5 and 6. I'm going to ask Councillor Clark to move, please.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Mayor. I'll move that recommendation, which is on page 5 there. I have a few things to say about it. You want me to say them now?
Yeah, if you would like to.
Right, well, first is obviously thanking people. I know we were all assembled here last week, so thanking the members for turning up tonight for this extraordinary meeting during the summer holiday season. This is a key decision in that whatever is decided in this chamber tonight regarding the 5 recommendations in the report, it will go forward to the Cabinet to consider and decide as prescribed in the Local Government Act 2000. So just a quick recap for everyone. The recap is on the 16th of December 2024, the government published the English Devolution White Paper. This effectively set out that all councils in 2-tier areas, such as Nottinghamshire, should aim to reconfigure into new unitary councils. On to the 5th of February 2025, the Ministry of State invited all council leaders in these 2-tier areas and small unitary councils, such as Nottingham City, to develop proposals for local government reorganisation, and that was through an interim plan. On 19th of March 2025, this council met and agreed to note the contents of the interim plan, to submit the interim plan to government and to work collaboratively with all the councils, all Nottingham and Nottinghamshire councils. On the 21st of March 25, Nottingham and Nottinghamshire submitted the interim plan to government containing 3 options. Option 1B, where Gedling merges with Nottingham City and Broxtowe. Option 1E, where Gedling merges with Ashfield, Bassetlaw, Mansfield and Newark and Sherwood. Option 2, where Gedling and 6 other boroughs and district councils merge with the county council. On the 3rd of June 2025, the Minister of Housing, Communities and Local Government issued its feedback on the interim plan. During this time, PwC, as the appointed consultants, have continued to determine the most suitable option for Nottingham and Nottinghamshire. They conclude that option 2 demonstrates the weakest alignment to the government criteria, but the difference between option 1B and option 1E are marginal and are too close to call. These are the professionals that are looking at this. Further analysis of the 2 shortlisted options covered 3 key areas. Sensible economic area, where PwC concluded that the option 1E provides a marginally stronger fit than option 1B. Sensible geography, where the PwC again concluded that option 1E best meets the government criteria. Impact on crucial services, where PwC have concluded that option 1B best meets the criteria, but it is only because they favour one new unitary council to be urban focused and the other to be rural focused. In my opinion, this needs to be challenged, as it does not actively encourage innovations around public service reform. On balance, Mr. Mayor, this report recommends the Council to support option 1E, where Gedling merges with Ashfield, Bassetlaw, Mansfield, Newark and Sherwood for the following reasons. It has a sensible geography which will increase housing supply in both proposed new unitary areas. It provides a stronger fit on travel to work areas. It ensures communities stay better connected. It also supports operational efficiencies in service provision, and it also demonstrates good value for money, and it joins up the local identity and cultural historical values. That helps people, just remind them the short journey we've been on, because if you look, it was only 16th of December, So it's been a fast acting thing that's gone off, but that gives you some idea to it. So I will formally recommend that now, or officially recommend it on page 5, the recommendation 1E. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Clark. Councillor Fox to second, please.
Second the report and reserve the right to speak. Thank you.
Councillor Sam Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I'd like to thank the leader for introducing that report. LGR is something him and I have been working on for what seems to be forever, but is actually a long 6 months of our lives that seems to have taken up most of it. This local government reorganisation is the biggest shake-up of local government across the whole of this country in 50 years. And we need to remind ourselves, this is where the leader and I may disagree for a short moment, but I promise we'll come back to agreement in a moment. We need to remind ourselves why this is happening. It's being driven hard and fast by the Treasury, who want to save billions of pounds a year rather than spending hundreds of millions a year bailing out incompetent councils, which I'm sorry, and this might make me unpopular in this chamber, most of them are Labour run, if you look at Nottingham City and Birmingham. And councils right across the county here in Nottinghamshire seem to be being forced to pick between 1E and 1B, both which include the city taking over at least 2 districts, because the appraisal of a county-only option, we're told, since the submission in March, does not meet the government's criteria of the city being able to grow its tax base. But what we hear in the press, and we'll all have read it over the many months, is that the city council's on the way to recovery and they're going to be financially sustainable in a few years. I don't know where they've found the magic money tree, but that's what we're being told. Therefore, I don't buy into the argument in the pack that you'll have all read today or over the week that it's been published that the county-only option doesn't meet the criteria, because the city will be financially viable, we're told. And any disruption of the existing county boundary will cost £8 million more than any other option. £8 million more. And that's £8 million that we should be spending on services rather than spending on the disaggregation of public services. I'll move on now. That's been disregarded, so we're faced with the option of 1B or 1E tonight. Both have been drawn up prior to the government's watering down of the criteria, which happened in May. That 500,000 figure that we were all told prior to May, gone. The districts being used as building blocks and no boundary changes, gone. So what we must now see, rather than being forced to pick between 1B or 1E, is new options being drawn up between now and November that focus on the new government criteria. And that may include possibly a Rushcliffe, Gedling and Newark combination. Let's have a look at it. Let's do the stats. Let's model it. Let's have a look. 1E and 1B, whatever option people pick tonight, will see large chunks of rural Nottinghamshire being absorbed into the city, making it one of the biggest, if not the biggest, rural cities in the country. And those towns and villages taken over by the city will be ignored, completely ignored, as public service demands in places like Sneinton, Lenton and Mapley Park will totally outshadow and be over-prioritised over the villages in the Vale of Belvoir or Arnold, Mapley and Colton. And one of tonight's recommendations, I think it's the first or second one, is that this council votes for option 1E on the basis that it keeps Gedling out of the city. That's something of which all councillors, and definitely the Conservative councillors, totally support, as do 4,000 odd residents who have signed our petition calling on Gedling not to be taken over by the failed and bankrupt Nottingham City. However, so we can all say, yes, we've voted tonight to save Gedling going in the city. That's marvellous, absolutely fantastic. However, what that does mean is we've voted in favour of 1E, which puts Rushcliffe in the city instead of Gedling. And that is not a good thing for the services in Gedling. It is not a good thing for the residents of Gedling. And I'll tell you why, and it's written clear as day through the report. Rushcliffe are the biggest taxpayers in this county. I don't mean they pay the highest council tax, they don't. What they contribute the most council tax of any district in the county. So you put them in the city, But you leave the service demand. 70% of children and adult services demand comes from the north of the council, Ashfield and Mansfield. You take Rushcliffe away, put it in the city. Woohoo! We've saved Gedling in the city. What will happen? You'll have less people paying in, far less money coming in to the remaining county that Gedling will be part of. So the new county council or the new unitary authority that some of us in this room might be lucky enough to get elected to, day one will be faced with two options. Increase council tax for the people of Gedling or cut services. There's the first option you'll be presented on day one of your election to the unitary authority. And I'll tell you what will be first to go. Arnold Leisure Centre, gone. Carlton Leisure Centre, that you might build or you may not build at Richard Herod, gone. Kelverton Leisure Centre, gone. All services that we rely on, gone. Rural bus services, gone. So although 1E prevents Gedling joining the city, it will still mean less services and higher tax for Gedling, and we can't be pleased about that. And I'm being hurried up. I appreciate. How long do you get?
You've gone over 5 minutes.
Finish now.
I don't usually interrupt because I think it's rude to say 1 minute, but
no,
yeah, if you could.
Sorry.
Finish.
And I appreciate you giving me a little more time because this is the biggest vote we'll ever make in this chamber. So what I'm trying to make clear is, although we can tonight save Gedling going into the city, it still risks you lose your income and we're going to face worse services. What is really pleasing about this report, and I agree with the leader on this, and it's in the report and the recommendation. Recommendation C is the most important recommendation of this evening because that leaves it open between now and November for this council to go away in lockstep with our residents to negotiate with other councils better options against the existing criteria. Options that don't meet the 500,000 criteria that's been watered down by the government, and options that don't include district by districts, because you can have boundary changes. 2 paragraphs in the interim plan submitted in March had 2 paragraphs on boundary changes. So if done right, LGR is brilliant. We've just got to make sure it's right for Gedling. Losing Rushcliffe is not right for Gedling because you lose the tax base that pays for our services. So we'll vote with the recommendations, but we champion recommendation C, which leaves this council open to come forward with other options against the new criteria, and we look forward to those coming forward. Sorry for going on. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Smith. I allow Councillor Smith to speak longer there because obviously there's some points that need to be made and this is important. So going forward, that members who speak, I'll allow 6 minutes and 45 seconds to make it fair. Okay, so Councillor Whiting's the next person.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I believe that the independent group has a short amendment that we would like to propose.
Would you like to... Have we
Is it
got a
better
copy
to
of that?
circulate it first?
Yeah, we'll circulate that
Thank you.
first. Councillor Whiting, would you like to speak on this first? Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. For the benefit of those who don't have sight in front, the first 5 recommendations in the pack A, B, C, D and E remain the same, and we are proposing to add a recommendation F, that Cabinet calls upon the Secretary of State to make provision for the public to have the final say on any proposals through a Nottinghamshire-wide referendum prior to implementation. And the reason that we're bringing this forward tonight, Mr. Mayor and colleagues, is that I think it would be fair to say that there are a range of views on this topic. And I'm sure if you wander down your local high street or into your local pub or onto your local Facebook page, you will see those range of views expressed very eruditely and sometimes not very eruditely. None of this operation that we're now going through was in the Labour Party manifesto. There's no mention of it during the general election. There were some vague mentions of local government, but nothing as drastic as what we're being asked to approach now. There's no mandate, as far as I can see from the public, for any of this that we're going through. Councillor Smith has just said, and others have said at previous meetings, that this is the most significant piece of local government reorganisation we're going through in over 50 years, and yet we're rushing through it at absolutely breakneck speed. And I think the whole thing from word go to the end is going to be less than a year. And that is no way to reorganise what is going to have clearly a massive impact on the services that our residents receive and ultimately the amount of tax that they will be paying. We note that in the pack, and I'll have more to say about this later, there is mention of public consultation, but consultation is no substitute for actually giving the public a say and listening to them properly. I understand that there's no current legal provision for there to be a referendum on this issue through the Act of Parliament that it kind of arises from, but the Secretary of State can obviously make those provisions, and I think Rushcliffe has already called for a referendum, and I think other council leaders are certainly sympathetic to it, so it would be a chance for Gedling to lead from the front. These are serious issues, and our people that we represent in this chamber and elsewhere in Nottinghamshire care deeply about the places that they live, and they want to have a say in the future. And I don't think it's good enough, basically, for these decisions to be taken on a Wednesday night in the middle of the school holidays when there's a lot of councillors who aren't here, and then we're all going to allow the Cabinet to put this forward and say, right, we'll come back maybe in 6 months, maybe in 5 months, and we'll have one more meeting, and then we allow the government basically to make the final decision. I think the public need to have a vote, and I hope that colleagues will support this amendment.
And the seconder?
Yeah, I'm seconding it, Mr. Mayor, yeah.
Okay. Before we open up to debate, is there a request from any members for an adjournment to discuss the recommendation?
Yes, please, Mr. Mayor, 10 minutes.
Okay. Is that seconded, Councillor Clark? Yeah, Councillor Scroggy seconded. And we'll have a vote on an adjournment. All those in favour? Any against? And any abstentions? Okay, so we'll have 10 minutes from now. Thank you, members. Thank you very much, members. So I'm now going to open this up to debate to all members for the proposals that have been put forward by Councillor Whiting and Councillor Mead. So we're discussing that amendment. So any speakers, please? Councillor Hughes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As a Liberal Democrat, I obviously support the principle of giving citizens the final say, especially in such an important issue. But it occurs to us in the Lib Dem group that having a referendum at the end of the process is actually the wrong time. It should have been done at the outset to see if there was any appetite for for local government reorganisation to see unitary councils across Nottinghamshire. Nevertheless, we support the idea of a referendum, although phrasing the question or questions is obviously going to be very difficult, and that's going to be up to the Secretary of State. Nevertheless, if it ends up with multiple options, then it would have to be done by single transferable vote, another Liberal Democrat principle.
Thank you, Councillor Hughes. Councillor Adams.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, the referendum idea is something that is not new to us. On the 19th of April, we created a petition and also wrote to the Minister suggesting that very thing. And the exact words of that were, we urge you to listen to our residents and ensure that any significant structural changes are subject to a full public consultation or a referendum. And at that point, we believe that clearly demonstrates the democratic mandate for this to progress. That position hasn't changed, and for that reason, we'll be backing this amendment.
Thank you, Councillor Adams. Any other speakers, please? Councillor Elwood.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Currently, local government reorganisation in Nottinghamshire is being done to our local residents rather than by our local residents. A referendum can be a blunt instrument to make decisions, but it at least will give residents a final say on the outcome of this process. The prospect of a referendum may also influence the details of the final proposal for local government reorganisation on the basis that that proposal will need to be accepted by a majority of the residents in Nottinghamshire. So for those reasons, I will be supporting the amendment. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Elwood. Are there any more speakers before I go back to the proposer? Councillor Wilkinson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Look, a full and open, thorough public consultation is absolutely vital, but that doesn't have to be a referendum. In fact, I would argue that a referendum is the worst way of doing it, because we've seen before what's happened when we've had a referendum. It's divisive. It's a blunt instrument, as I think it's Councillor Elwood has just said. It is almost by definition a binary choice. This is far more complex than that. Yes, I want to see a full, thorough public consultation. I don't think a referendum is the way to do it. I'll be voting against this amendment for that reason.
Thank you, Councillor Wilkinson. Any more speakers before I move back to the proposer? Okay. Councillor Sam Smith.
Thank you, Mayor. Could I just propose a named vote on the amendment, please?
Have you got a seconder for that? Okay. Councillor Whiting.
Councillor Smith stole my thunder of asking for a name vote.
I'm not apologising again tonight, if you don't.
Look, we perhaps shouldn't be surprised that some people who spent about 3 years trying to overturn the last referendum that we had in this country are not in favour of referendums. But as I think Councillor Hughes said that this referendum should have been at the start of the process. I think that might have even opened up a bigger can of worms of, yes, if the public say yes, they want reorganisation, well, what does that look like? And then we go down this avenue. But we are where we are. And I do think that there's however thorough your public consultation is going to be, and I think we're going to come on to talk about that in a little while, it is no substitute for having the public walk into a ballot box and make a decision. I mean, we might start arguing that we should have a thorough consultation on what the makeup of our councils should be and go from there. But democracy and direct democracy is, I think, an important part when we are talking about significant constitutional issues, and I believe that this shake-up is a significant constitutional issue. So for that reason, I hope that members will support.
Now, Councillor Clark.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Mayor. It's difficult, this, because agreeing and not agreeing. And to say that ever since, when was it, December the 16th, I think it was, that this came out, I have raised this at every single meeting, and I think the evidence backs it with speaking to other members, other leaders, and the chief execs. And Mike's been there on several occasions, but it's quite clear that the public, it's one of the biggest, as you said, Sam, I think earlier, it's one of the biggest decisions we're going to have to make for the next 50 years. So in favour it in that way. What I can't go along with, and the group can't go along with, one is the time. This is accelerating at such a pace now that if we don't make a decision, and to get a referendum together is going to take significant amount of time to actually get that and to put it forward. Also added to this is Mr. Mayor, there is no money coming from government to do this. We are funding our own research. We are funding our officers dealing with it. We are funding PwC. There's not one penny coming to it. And I'd imagine, I don't know, our 151 officers there, and she probably told me it's going to cost you $500,000 to do that in Gedling, which it probably would do by the time you've printed, posted, and everything else. So the cost is another one that rules it out. But the clear thing is from government that if we don't make the decision, we don't show that we're heading towards that, then they'll make a decision for us. So with saying those few words, I would want us to move forward, and we will vote against this amendment. Sympathy with it, but at this time and the time scale just doesn't run, and we haven't got the cash to run that. But it doesn't stop us. I've constantly been badgering people, including our own chief exec, public meetings, all sorts, so we get this on the agenda. People can start to talk about it and see how it affects them, so they can personally go along to things and speak about it, so they can take that on board. So with that, I say we would go against the amendment. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Clark. So we'll now move to the name vote, and the Chief Executive will read out the names of members, and if you can give your point there. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just to clarify, this vote is on the amendment. So for this vote, when I call your name, please state either for, against or abstain. Councillor Adams.
For.
Councillor Roy Allen.
Against.
Deputy Mayor.
Against.
Councillor Bestwick.
For.
Councillor Brocklebank.
Against.
Councillor Clark. Against. Councillor Creamer.
Against.
Councillor Duncan. Councillor Elliott. Councillor David Ellis.
Against.
Councillor Rachel Ellis.
Against.
Councillor Elwood.
For.
Councillor Fox.
Against.
Councillor Greensmith.
For.
Councillor Hughes. Councillor Hunt.
Against.
Councillor Maltby.
For.
Councillor Ron McCrossan. Councillor Viv McCrossan. Councillor Paling.
Against.
Councillor Payne.
Against.
Councillor Pearson.
Against.
Councillor Pickering.
For.
Councillor Catherine Pope.
Against.
Councillor Graham Pope.
Against.
Mr. Mayor.
Against.
Councillor Scroggy. Councillor Martin Smith.
For.
Councillor Sam Smith.
For.
Councillor Strong.
Against.
Councillor Towsey Hinton. Councillor Walker? Councillor Welsh? No? That's an old list. Councillor Wheeler?
Against.
Councillor Whiting? Councillor Wilkinson?
Against.
Has Councillor Meads been read out?
I've missed Councillor Meads. Councillor Meads?
For.
Okay, Mr Mayor, that vote is lost. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So we'll now move back to the recommendations as are on page 5 and 6, and I'll open this up to debate. Councillor Bestwick.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I know we've got several proposals on the table still at the moment. I just wanted really to remind everybody where Nottingham City Council are at the moment. They were effectively declared bankrupt in November 2023, and according to their leader, Negat Khan, is still operating beyond its means. Indeed, in the year 2024 to 2025, Nottingham City Council's budget gap was still an eye-watering £50 million, almost as much as taxpayers' money as they lost on Robin Hood Energy. Furthermore, the government-appointed commissioners who are currently managing the finances of the city are not due to depart until February 2026. Since November 2023, the city have been receiving exceptional financial support from central government. This was £25 million in 2023-24, £41 million in 2024-25, and is set to be £25 million this year and £10 million next year. That, as I'm sure you've all worked out with your lightning maths, is over £100 million. And that is about £312 per person in the city that have received funding from the taxpayer across the UK. So I think now we can see why the government are pushing the expansion of the city. It's so it doesn't have to use taxpayers' money to make up for the financial incompetence of Nottingham City Council. And it's not something that the leader, Ms Khan, hides behind. She's openly said that she needs more houses in the city to collect more council tax. And I'm afraid it gets worse. For example, let's look at what Gedling becoming part of the city means to our residents, the ones that we all represent, all of us. So for a Band D property in Nottingham City, the council tax this year is £2,656. That's £174 more than an unparished Band D property in Gedling. So, members, if Gedling did become part of a new unitary authority that included the city, we'd be subjecting our residents to a 7% council tax hike. Finally, the city currently also operate a workplace parking levy scheme. As I know to my own cost, this charges businesses for having the temerity to provide parking spaces for its staff. And if Gedling again becomes part of that city, every business with more than 11 spaces will have to pay into this levy. For example, if you're a small business with 20 spaces, it's going to cost you over £5,000 a year. And as we know, those costs can get passed on to residents in the form of extra prices and so forth. But as my colleagues also said, one of the other proposals we have heard is puts Rushcliffe in the city instead of Gedling into the city. So as Councillor Smith has just made clear, whilst that would protect Gedling from being taken over by the city, it would not protect our services, and it would not lower tax rates, as Rushcliffe's taxpayers are the highest contributors per capita across the county. That is why we must keep our options open and vote for these recommendations, particularly recommendation C. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bestwick. Councillor Hughes.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. As I said when we last debated this issue, this local government reorganisation is the very opposite of devolution and is fundamentally undemocratic. It will reduce democratic accountability and inevitably result in more decisions being taken by officers rather than elected representatives. To me, it seems absurd that when decisions are being taken by councillors, that a planning application in Burton Joyce could be decided by a councillor who lives 40 miles away in North Bassetlaw and has never visited the area. It will increase the democratic deficit as across the country hundreds of district councillors will lose their seats through no fault of their own and not at the will of the local electorate. Countless years of accumulated knowledge and experience will be lost. There was no great public clamour for local government reorganisation. It wasn't in the Labour Party manifesto, nor was it at the top of any council's agenda. Instead, councils have had to spend hundreds of pounds on consultants, money which could have been better spent on local services. And then there are the many hours of officer time spent on developing these proposals. All of that is time that could have been better spent sorting out day-to-day issues and problems. Now, I, like I hope everyone else in this chamber, have thought long and hard about this. I don't like any of the options, and I would prefer to keep the status quo, but sadly that isn't on the table. Of all the options, 1E, our preferred option, is in my view the least worst of those options. It seems to align pretty closely with the government's criteria and should lead to two sustainable unitary authorities. Not only that, it at least has the merits of reflecting the wishes of our electorate, who are overwhelmingly opposed to Gedling being subsumed into the city. So it is with a heavy heart that I will be supporting these recommendations. Finally, I would like to thank the leader and the chief executive and other officers for all the work they've put in to get us to this point. But I appreciate there's still an awful lot more work to be done, and I must say, I don't envy you. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hughes. Councillor Whiting.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. Can I start by echoing what Councillor Hughes has said about the leader and the officers? I think last time we were here, everyone said what an impressive job they've done in pulling this together, and I think that continues to be the case along with other officers, I'm sure, and leaders from other councils. The recommendations that we're being asked to vote for tonight, starting with B, approving 1E, which basically keeps us out of the city, keeps Gedling out of the city, but puts Broxtowe and Rushcliffe in. I agree that we don't want to be in the city, but what makes places like Beeston and West Bridgeford and Eastwood so much different to places in Gedling that we're okay with them going in to the city? It seems to me that this whole operation is an exercise in throwing your neighbour under the bus, and I don't think we should have much truck with that. C, some people have said C is the most important option, but my understanding was we'd gone through the last 6 months to come up with these 2 or 3 options, and that was going to be the choice. Suddenly now we're opened up to the possibility that this whole thing could start again. And the last 6 months could have been a complete waste of time, and we could be sitting here again in 6 months being told, these are new options that we've worked up, and now you've got 2 weeks before Angela Rayner makes the final decision, or this, that, and the other. Now, I don't know if anyone has seen the so-called Nottingham City squiggly line plan that is going around, where they keep all of Nottingham City, and they branch out the city, but they don't take all of Broxtowe and Rushcliffe and Gedling. They take the bits where they want the tax base, and they leave the bits where they don't want the tax base in the second unitary authority. And apparently that is now the option that Nottingham City Council are pushing forwards. I don't know if anyone else in this room has seen that map, but I think in the interest of transparency, we should have. We certainly need more information on point D, which is the county-wide approach to engagement activities, and I'll say a bit more about that in a moment. But the one that really made me chuckle was E, because we're talking about supporting a continued collaborative working. Now, we might be collaboratively working behind the scenes, but as soon as it comes to a meeting like this, I've just made a note here. Gedling wants City, Rushcliffe and Broxtowe. Broxtowe just wants to stay out of the city. Rushcliffe wants the city alone. The city wants whoever's going to give them the most council tax money. And the other districts just seem to be sitting back, crossing their fingers and praying that they don't get sucked into this whole sorry mess that we're in. The county didn't want this. The county did want a city-county split. I don't know what the position is now. And all our residents actually just want this to go away, and they want us to do things like maintain the parks, collect the bins, sort the leisure centres out, and fix the roads. So just a few points, if I may, Mr. Mayor, on the detail here. 4.3 on page 42 of our pack talks about the communications and engagement. I don't know whether this has started. I don't think a public consultation has started. It's August this week. Nothing's going to happen over August because of holidays and so on. So that then takes us into September to start a consultation. Well, first of all, to come up with what the plan is, to start the consultation, to run the consultation, to end the consultation, to look at the responses, to send them to government, to get the feedback, to come back. It seems to me wholly implausible that that can happen in September, from September to November. We've got here that we're going to work with town and parish councils. As far as I know, no town or parish council has been approached yet, and public, private and voluntary sector, this is obviously a huge operation, and presumably we might need to have some kind of plan B if the public come back as we think they might and say, stuff the lot of you, we're not interested in any of this, we want it to stay the same. Then we move on to item 7.7 on page 51, the treatment of debt. I'm going to challenge Councillor Bestwick's lightning maths here. We've got £1.6 billion of combined debt in Nottinghamshire, presumably going up all the time. Option 1E or option 1B saves £31.6 million a year. That's 52 years to pay off the debt. And that's
they're not my maths, Councillor Wrighton.
Well, all right, maybe we've got a different calculator, but that's what my math says. Over 50 years to pay off this debt, and that's with no extra spending and no debt going up. And then we go on to page 70, which I think we're now into the PwC report, which I'm pleased we've finally been able to get a look at, as we paid for it, I believe, some time ago. It says that under transformed service delivery, LGR should be the catalyst for transformation, beginning with the establishment of new unitary councils. Well, we've already got one unitary council in Nottinghamshire, and it's not going particularly well. And also, whenever I see the word should, it gets me very worried because, you know, my kids should go to bed at 7 o'clock, but they don't. We should do lots of things that we don't do. I should go to the gym, but I don't. We should eat. You know, this kind of should is not good language. And also, the third point here is establish a stronger voice for the place. As Councillor Elwood said, how are we going to have a strong voice for our residents in Gedling, those of us who are lucky to be elected to this new authority, when we're sitting in a room with potentially 100 other councillors representing, you know, a very disparate group of residents across the county and perhaps the city. And then on point 84, we come on to limitations of the two-tier system. Yes, it is confusing, and yes, people do, or whatever I post on Facebook, everyone always says, what about the roads? And you have to explain to them that's not Gedling's responsibility, etc. But the financial limitations that the councils have at the moment, with a few exceptions, are not down to their own mismanagement. They're down to the fact that we've had 14 plus years of austerity that is continuing, and councils are not being funded properly. And this basically is an exercise, it seems to me, in rearranging the deck chairs on the Titanic. Because unless people are going to get more money to invest in their services at councils, what is the point in just shuffling everyone around and giving it a new badge, which probably consultants will be paid even more money for? And then on page 86...
15 seconds, Councillor
Okay,
Whiting.
page 86, there's still no mention of how many councillors, but I will just very quickly, I've got some very specific questions, if I may, Mr Mayor, for the leader. Can he tell us when the consultation will start and what it will look like? Can he tell us what role the parish councils will have? Can he tell us whether he's actually convinced himself, of all the meetings he's been in, whether any of these plans will improve residents' services?
Thank you, Councillor Whiting. I'm going to have to stop you now.
And how much has Gedling Borough Council spent so far?
I can't give any more time. Are there any more speakers? Councillor Adams.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, I liked quite a lot of that, Russell. That was quite entertaining. Thanks for putting a smile on our faces. The different combination of options has been quite something. I think what's been fundamentally clear throughout this whole thing is, you know, nobody wants to be a part of the city. I mean, if there's one thing that everybody agrees on, it's fundamental, apart from the city, obviously. Well, in fact, I suspect some of them probably don't want to be part of the city either. But there's been no offer of them to hop out of the castle and join the party downriver. Look, a bit of an overstretch, I would think, to blame austerity on on the City Council's issues. I mean, look, you know, you only have to look at Robin Hood Energy and its 50 million, the Castle mismanagement, the Broadmarsh debacle, let's call it, you know, and all the issues surrounding that have gone off. You know, the money put in an incorrect account. You know, the list goes on. That's not down to anything to do with austerity or to do with the government mission. That's to do with a council that is not operating in the way it should. I have a huge fear about this council becoming part of the city. I've had that fear since day one. Our whole group's had that fear. I remember when it was first announced this was going to be a possibility, that the rush throughout the Gedling Conservatives, Rushcliffe Conservatives, the whole group across Nottinghamshire, all of us coming together, right, we've got to do something about this, what are we going to do? And we've already mentioned earlier about the 19th of April's launch of the petition. And that was a very clear line in the sand to say, we don't want this. We don't want to be connected to the city in any way, shape or form. And that was a direct reflection of what our residents said. That was not something we just came up with on the back of a fag packet because we were bored. It came up very openly and very honestly in discussions we'd had with people on the doorstep. And it was obvious throughout the last election, in conversations we'd have with people, that did never, ever wane. And the fear of people, every door I knocked on, it was there. They didn't want to be a part of that city. And so, you know, the options that have been brought forward with us today, and also one of the key parts of the recommendations today talks about, is working continually to ensure that we work towards options that do not involve that combination. On day one of the City Council becoming a part, or Gedling becoming a part of City Council, adult social care goes from being in a good condition to an inadequate condition. Day one, minute one, that's what happens straight away. The people who currently have a good quality of care immediately fall into an inadequate quality of care. I can't be in a conversation with those people and say that's fair on them. Why should a system they've paid into for however long, being it Nottinghamshire, that they've invested in as residents, that their families have invested in over the years, all the people that have lived and died in this shire have invested to this Nottinghamshire County Council that we have now. They've invested to ensure that that council becomes the council it's become, which is a strong council. And yet, there's a possibility here they could lose all of that investment, and that is all changed immediately overnight. And I know the people that work in this council don't want to see that happen. They don't want to see their good work go that way. I know many people that we talk to across all councils don't want to see it go that way. I just want to touch on a point that was made earlier about planning. Now, there is something quite interesting about planning that has changed in the updated government criteria. And you can actually have district level planning meetings now. So that was something that has changed very recently. So would bring an element of local, would bring a local connection directly to planning. So that could be something that could be localised. So maybe that distance wouldn't be quite so frightening as it has sounded in the past. And if done right, creating unitary authorities can result in better local services, slicker decision making, joined up approaches, schools, buses, health planning, bins. We've seen many times bin lorries go down one road, do half the road, and then they have to turn left and go down the other road and have missed the other half of the road. And you sit there thinking, how can they not do both sides of the road? It doesn't make any sense. And a lot of the time when you first get into councils, you spend a lot of time going, this doesn't make any sense. And I'll be honest, a lot of it doesn't make any sense. But, you know, you then subsequently, as a result of these things coming together, you can end up with lower taxes, and you can end up with savings generated by these groups coming together. But it must be done right, and it must reflect local need. 1B and 1E do not, but recommendation C allows for further consideration of other options between now and November. So let's see them. Let's do the work on the business cases, and let's implement a new council structure that keeps Gedling out of the city, fundamentally out of the city, and delivers better services for our residents, which ultimately is what we're all here to do. It's what we all want to deliver. It's what the people that pay the council tax want to see, and it's what the staff that work for the councils want to see. That's why they put so much care and attention into the job. So let's deliver it for Gedling.
Thank you. Councillor David Ellis.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. There's been a lot of discussion, a lot of comments about we wish this would go away. So I was reflecting on how we got here. We've had 14 years of austerity under the last Conservative government, which has hollowed out local authorities, it's reduced the services on offer and our capacity to meet the needs and residents and expectations of residents. At the same time, we've seen increasing demand for adult social care and children's services, safeguarding and SEND, and across the authority, so across the county, some top-tier authorities are struggling across the country to meet this. We had the Conservative initiative to introduce another tier of local government in the East Midlands Combined County Authority. And then, as the leader mentioned, the Labour government came in committed to devolving power and resources to local government, but requiring organisations that are able to deliver and, of course, expecting efficiencies. All this has led to a very clear expectation that a two-tier structure is replaced by unitary status. We might not have wanted to get here, but this is where we are. As has been said, the current structure of local authority has lasted broadly unchanged for 50 years, and we need to design the best structure of unitary councils for Nottinghamshire to last at least another 50 years, and not be swayed by short-term problems or apparent immediate party advantage. The government guidance requires that the proposals reflect sensible economic areas and sensible geographies, should avoid fragmentation of services, and should consider issues of local identity and cultural and historical importance. And the local criteria have been added in, a call for sensible geographies, reflect how people live their lives, and financially sustainable local authorities that are resilient in the face of future challenges. Now, I recognise the work that PwC have pulled together to produce this extensive evidence base, but I think we also ought to acknowledge the hard work from the senior management teams from all councils in steering this work and providing the information needed for this detailed analysis. I particularly want to note the work of the Chief Executive, the Section 151 Officer and the Director of Place in representing Gedling. Tonight's not a final decision, it's essentially a progress report, and it's welcome that we have the opportunity to discuss it. I think the PwC work is useful in giving us a clear picture of the issues. Essentially, at this point, given the government guidance and the realities on the ground in Nottinghamshire, there is no viable alternative to two unitary councils, a North Nottinghamshire Council and a Council for the Greater Nottingham Conurbation. Despite the shroud waving and we've heard, that these are new councils, both of which will come with their own opportunities, challenges and risks. The PwC work also clarifies, as members have said, that the main choice is whether the Gedling Borough area is in North Nottinghamshire or part of the Conurbation Council, with the Rushcliffe area going in the opposite direction. Now, you don't have to be a student of history or international politics to appreciate how arbitrary lines on maps can cause problems for generations. We must make sure that two new councils are given the best chance to succeed and meet the needs of this and future generations. But there's no avoiding the fact, on the ground, that the urban area of Gedling, where 80% of the electorate live, is intrinsically part of the conurbation. People in Arnold and Carlton use a public transport system that crosses the conurbation. Buses and trains mostly run into Nottingham, and if we ever get a tram line to Gedling, it will run into Nottingham. Many people live in Gedling, but work in Nottingham and depend on its continuing economic success. The economic, social, cultural and academic heart of the conurbation is in Nottingham. Our hospitals and walk-in centres are in Nottingham. If you stand in Deer Park Drive, Ox Close Lane, Woodthorpe Drive, Porchester Road, Carlton Hill, Oakdale Road, or many of the roads in the borough, just look one way and you'll see residents in Gedling and the county. Look the other and you see residents in Nottingham. Their lives, needs and aspirations and expectations of public services are similar, and the only difference is the colour of the bins. These are inescapable realities, and any structure that cuts Gedling off from Nottingham is being set up to fail or miss important opportunities. The two new councils will have to work together and with MCA to get the best for the county as a whole. But we all know that there's a limit how far any council will work with another when there's advantage to be gained. The risk of option 1E is that most residents in Gedling will be looking to Nottingham for jobs, economic growth, further higher education, shopping, culture, leisure and entertainment, indeed for identity. While for democratic representation, they'll be looking to a new council with its headquarters in Mansfield or Worksop. Now, I know why some people would rather not accept this, but the dispassionate PwC analysis is clear. The report suggests that the difference between the two options is marginal, but I'm not convinced that's borne out by the detailed work. At several points, the assessment notes that Gedling is integral to the functioning geography of the Nottingham conurbation. Now, I'm prepared to be convinced that Gedling could be advantaged by being part of a unitary authority that serves the north of the county, option 1E, but I'm not convinced the evidence we have before us sustains that argument. There's a lot of evidence that shows that being part of a new council for the conurbation is the better choice. The Labour Group has recognised this difficult and important decision and has agreed that members will have a free vote which reflects a range of legitimate views. And of course we know that there's not consistent view within parties across the county. I'm always reluctant to go against officer recommendations, but in this occasion I can't support the proposals before us. Specifically, I can't support the recommendation B, that option 1E is our preferred option, or recommendation C, which dismisses out of hand any other viable option, which involves Gedling being part of a new council for the conurbation. We have to develop viable, realistic options that work for the benefit of the people. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. Can I just ask members, while other members are speaking, to please be courteous and listen to what those members are saying? I did see other members having their own meetings whilst this meeting's taking place. Please have some respect for other members while they're speaking. They listened to you while you were speaking, and I think they would expect the same, please. So please do show some respect. Councillor Catherine Pope.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I thought I was going to be a lone fish swimming against the tide, so I'm grateful to Councillor Ellis, and I'm going to say some similar things that he has just said. I too have read all the papers in depth and listened carefully to the views expressed both today and at the last meeting, and I thought that this would be an opportunity to analyse the report to see which is the best long-term option for the residents of Gedling, who clearly lose out in the current arrangement with their county taxes being spent mostly in the north of the county. Here is an opportunity to align services and spend money on the infrastructure the people of Gedling use every day and which will best support its growth. So I was very disappointed that these are the recommendations put before us, especially considering the marginal difference between options B and E set out in the independent PwC report. Reading the detailed analysis behind those conclusions, it is also clear that in the areas where option E is said to be marginally preferred, the people who lose out are the residents of Gedling. So option B is the strongest option overall, albeit marginal, and in the areas where option 1E is marginally stronger, that's to the detriment of Gedling. So why on earth is it that our recommendation is to dismiss option 1B and support option 1E? It seems incongruous to me that we are not asking for more work on both these options, especially the option which is seemingly of most benefit to our residents, particularly the majority of them who live in the urban areas. Equally, why are we being asked to dismiss out of hand any option that aligns Gedling with the city with no rationale or supporting evidence, when the report demonstrates that more Gedling residents work in the city compared to any of the other boroughs that surround it? I note that the Tory councillors have secured a 4,000 signature against Gedling aligning with the city. Well, that does leave 114,000 who haven't, and spoiler alert, Rushcliffe have managed to secure 12,500 signatures in their similar similar petition. So similarly, I think if we went for a referendum, we've got a smaller population than Rushcliffe, so I don't think the numbers are going to work to your favour. When I speak to residents, yes, some are against option 1B, but many are in favour of it as being preferable to being aligned to Mansfield and Worksop. Many more didn't even know this was going on, and quite a few don't even know which side of the boundary they live in. In Carlton, People only know which council they belong to when they check the bins, and they have neighbours that they share walls with in semi-detached and terraced houses who live in a different authority to them. Most want to understand what the long-term benefits will be to them and their families without any of the political spin that we're hearing. So I have to consider which option I think is best for the people who live in Carlton. And for me, it's not necessarily the option we're being asked to vote for today, and therefore I'll be abstaining. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Graham Pope.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And can I add my thanks to the officers who've commissioned the report, the Pricewaterhouse report, which I found extremely helpful in trying to get an understanding of the benefits and non-benefits of the different models. Much of what I was going to say has been said by Councillor Ellis and Councillor Pope, so I won't dwell on repeating that and extending this debate. But I would like to make an observation which I would ask that colleagues on all sides reflect upon, and that is around language. Now, language is very important. It helps to provide clarity, it helps to answer people's questions. And tonight and previously we've heard a language that is being used in relation to this, which I would describe as pejorative, that Gedling is going to be taken over by the city, taken into the city. It will cease to exist. That is not the case. The case is there will be new authorities, and those new authorities will have new administrations, they'll have new wards, and they will have new councillors to represent the members within those areas. So the language that we use needs to be informative and it needs to be accurate. And to continue to use very pejorative language will continue to cause people to be accused of scaremongering. I don't believe anyone in this chamber sets out to scaremonger, but the language used will lead to that accusation. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Wilkinson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Much of what I want to say has just been said by my immediate predecessors. In particular, I think we need to nail this lie that it's about anybody being taken over by the city. These are brand new authorities. I'd also particularly like to address Councillor Bestwick's assertion that if Gedling forms part of the conurbation, if that's to happen, that we'd suddenly get a parking levy. We can't say that. It would be a brand new authority with brand new policies. The existing city parking levy doesn't cover the whole of the city area as it is. There's absolutely no reason why it should cover Gedling or Rushcliffe or Broxtowe. It just doesn't stack up, and I'm afraid that is scaremongering. Similarly, you can't say what the council tax would be in the new authorities. They will be brand new authorities with brand new council tax bases that will set their council tax rates. Again, that, I'm afraid, is scaremongering. Councillor Adams, although I'm sure he didn't intend to do this, actually made a very good argument for redrawing the boundaries. He talked about the nonsense of bin lorries only being able to collect half a street because the other half is in a different authority, or having to turn off halfway down a road because you move into a different authority. That is an argument for changing the boundaries of what is the existing city into a new authority. I find that I cannot support recommendation C in particular, which excludes viable options that involve any part of Gedling Borough being, any part of a reformed city. Why would we? That feels like cutting off our nose to spite our face. If there is a viable option, we should be considering it fully. I'm afraid, as with some of my colleagues, I'm going to be abstaining tonight because I cannot support the recommendations in front of us. Thank you.
Councillor Creamer.
Thank you. Thank you. I'll keep my reasonably short because most of what I was going to say has actually been said by the previous speakers. And part of it is because Carlton Hill itself, for argument's sake, you're on about bringing anomalies in. There's anomalies now. The whole of Porchester Road, Pavement and Road, is in the city. But the houses up from Carlton Hill are in Gedling. So they've got the wall in one place and the pavement in the road somewhere else. So anomalies already exist. When it goes to drawing boundaries about bin collections, etc., we have exactly the same already. Several roads, Galena Drive, Mayfield, Dale Avenue, Daleview Road, they're part the city. And we've got the ridiculous situation on Maycroft particularly, where it's a very narrow road. And what happens is, on Wednesdays, every now and then, Gedling has to put out a notice asking people not to block the road because it's bin day Wednesday. Then the city has to come and block exactly the same road and ask them not to block the road because it's their bin day Thursday. So there's anomalies exist already. I don't know where the idea of all of a sudden send is going to be inadequate. There is such things as 2P, and when you actually look at the document, those contracts, those things will be worked out then. You can't suddenly say, well, yeah, I'm a great care worker. Oh, tomorrow I won't be a great care worker, looking after the same people. So it is actually, to a large extent, scaremongering. We actually need the truth on what's happening. Again, every service I use is pretty well in the city. When my children were born, and they were actually born in the cities, in the city in the Queen's Med. When they went to school, they went to Hogarth School, which is still there, and it still supplies my estate, 513 odd houses. The main pupils from that my estate, which is in Gedling in the county, go to Hogarth School in the city. So there are anomalies now, and to just turn around and argue there's going to be anomalies in the future, there'll always be anomalies wherever there's a boundary, whether it's between whatever you want to call it, Nottinghamshire North, Nottinghamshire South, whatever, there'll always be anomalies. But to pretend they don't exist now is actually ludicrous. Actually joining together with the city to some extent will actually even out some of those boundary issues. It'll actually make it more efficient for bin lorries to actually go round Carlton and Gedling, as already said by another one. So yeah, not looking at a viable option, I have to agree with myself, is absolutely ridiculous. And if we all do the same as we're trying to do tonight, Broxtowe, Russ, everybody else, nobody will do anything because everybody will just be protecting their own and nothing will get done, and it'll be left to the MPs or whoever to decide, you can't make your minds up, everybody wants something different, I know you're having this, which is a massive mistake to make.
Councillor Maltby.
Thank you. Firstly, I've heard some very eloquent words tonight, and people going to great lengths speaking about how we all use a lot of facilities within the city, but there's no balance there. People do use the facilities within the city, but they're also spending their income in the city, boosting the economy there. So it's not a one-way ticket. Secondly, we've heard mention about this arbitrary 4,000 people that have signed this petition. Well, maybe we might get more of an idea of what the public want if we give them an idea of what's happening and actually tell them about a referendum. But no, we voted against that, so that's not an option we can go down. And then we're also talking about boundaries. Yeah, I know we've got boundary issues, but you'll always have boundaries. You'll get that between Nottinghamshire and Ashfield. So all because there's an arbitrary boundary on Porchester Road isn't a green light to join the city. I just find it amazing that we're all here trying to work best for what the residents want, but not one of us are actually giving the residents the right to make their own decision.
Thank you. Councillor Martin Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Can I just apologise for this group talking over another councillor? But we were quite incensed that we keep hearing this line being trotted out. It's actually lazy politics of 14 years of austerity under the last government. The BBC isn't renowned for being a huge supporter of the Conservative Party, but the Faisal Islam, the economics editor, in print, has gone out on record and said, quite rightly, up to 2017, this country went through austerity, through austerity. However, things changed after that. There was 4.1% real growth. So let's stop using this as an excuse. We didn't go through 14 years of austerity. We're probably going through it now. Core spending under the Conservative government to this council went up by 2%. Under this Labour government, it's gone up by 0.9%. That's real politics. That's the truth. It's not lazy reporting. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and apologies once again.
Councillor Strong.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I've been listening very carefully, and like Councillor Catherine Pope, I've read these documents. I'm not going to say a lot because what I want to say has been said by Councillor Ellis and Pope and Councillor Creamer and several others. But what I do feel, I've not made any secret of the fact that I thought that the language from the opposition group about this petition has been mildly hysterical and divisive and scaremongering. We don't know yet how many councillors will be there, what areas they will represent, or how it will work. This is to be decided. Now, if I'm presented with a technical problem when I was at work, I was always taught you go back to first principles. So to untangle some of this, the decisions to be made, I went back to first principles, and it's right at the first paragraph. And it says, the white paper aims to devolve greater powers to regions and local areas to improve public services and drive economic growth. And I think that's what we should keep our eyes on. Not who empties the bins, although that's important because who wants a full bin, but it would be useful to have one coloured bin for the whole region. There are lots of things to say in favour of economies of scale. So how we use those economies of scale and how we divide them up between unitary authorities is something that to be debated, and it's very important that we make the right decision. But I've listened very carefully and at length to all the arguments made, and I recognise the possible distress that might be caused. But again, go back to first principles. What is the aim? What are we trying to do? Keep what we're trying to do, what this is trying to do, in focus and in our sight, and work for it. And I wasn't going to mention this, but I will do. It reminds me of when you read about the 1846 Enclosure Act of Nottingham. The same arguments, I'm afraid, were slightly being made by the Burgesses of Nottingham when their land outside the city boundary was in danger of being taken over for building, which we have now. So history is repeating itself quite a bit. Again, keep in mind the aims, keep in mind what we're aiming for and what we want, which I'm sure it's common to everyone. We want economic growth and improved public services. Thank you.
Okay, are there any more speakers? Councillor Payne.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I've listened with interest to the discussion and debate tonight. This was always going to be a very difficult and emotive debate in Gedling for a very simple reason. Anybody who lives in Gedling and looks at a map, and we're all taught how to read maps in primary school, can see that Gedling sits in the heart of Nottinghamshire County and has sat there certainly since 1974, and it sits on the edge of Nottingham City. And anybody who sits here in this debate tonight, or indeed who has spent their time over the last few months telling residents of Gedling that they think there's a perfect new council that Gedling can join, and protecting Gedling from the city expanding, the language we've heard from opposition parties, is a perfect scenario. I'm afraid to say Mr. Mayor is selling you snake oil. And the reason they're selling you snake oil is this. Any governance structure in history that has ever pooled resources and different places that come from different communities has always resulted in winners and losers. Take the creation of the United Kingdom over 400 years ago. There is an age-old argument that now still exists about whether Scotland does better than England. Take the debate that still rages in England, whether the North does better than the South, and whether the South is richer than the North. Or indeed, if you don't want to take it that far, bring it right back home to 1974, when Carlton, Arnold and Basford came together to create this council that we've all proudly sat in for the last 50 years. Arguments raged then about who had the better housing stock, who had the bigger debt, who had the more wealthy society, who had the better businesses, who would win out of the creation in Gedling. Would it be Arnold, or would it be Carlton, or would it be Basford? But the truth is, Mr Mayor, that once those councils had been disbanded, once Gedling had been created, the people, the communities, the businesses, the representatives who sit in this chamber alongside their officers came together and tried to make the best for the people they serve out of the council that was created. We still have an argument to this day, indeed it's levied against me as a Member of Parliament, that look, he's a Member of Parliament for Arnold because it was where he's born. He doesn't really care about Carlton, Burton Joyce, Woodborough or Lamley. And of course the people who are making that argument for one reason and one reason only. They're not making that argument because it's based in any truth. They're making that argument because it serves their political agenda, which is partly what you've heard tonight. By the way, it's not dissimilar to the argument that's taking place in America. California is a net contributor to the federal budget. Texas isn't. They're both brilliant places. The people who live in those areas are brilliant people. They have brilliant businesses. But it suits the politicians to talk about their own political agenda. And I'm afraid to say, Mr Mayor, that what I've heard in recent months, whatever people's view about whether the government should have pursued this decision or not, and by the way, it's wrong to say the government don't have a mandate to do this. I think Councillor Whiting said it earlier. Forgive me, Councillor Whiting, but we had something called a general election, which takes place every 4 to 5 years in this country. It's called direct democracy, which I heard you championing earlier. And I think quite a few million people voted for the Labour Party in this election. I've heard you raise many issues in this chamber. I never saw you mention in any of your leaflets, but you have a right to do it because the people of Colwick endorse you as their councillor, and I wouldn't challenge it. So this was always going to be a really, really difficult issue. And let me just say this on the record, and I've said it before, and no doubt there'll be people who want to clip me after this council meeting and have a go at me as a Member of Parliament for standing up for people who you don't agree with. But those people who are making a petty argument, beating up on the place that is Nottingham City, do nothing for the people who live here in Gedling. Many of the people who live here in Gedling work in the city. They go to the theatres in the city. They rely on the city hospital and the QMC. They get on the bus to get into the city. They drive into the city to go on the trains that pass through the borough and the city. And I, for one, as a politician, as long as I have served on this council and for as long as I serve as a Member of Parliament, will continue to make the argument that it is in our best interest here in Gedling to have a thriving city, because with a thriving city comes growth, with a thriving city comes opportunities for students, with a thriving city comes opportunities for jobs, but also, what I will say on the flip side of the argument is I also want to see a thriving county because of the beautiful parks that we have in the county, because of the agriculture that we have in the county, because of the amazing open spaces that we have in the county, because of the history and heritage that exists in the county. And when people say in this chamber, as they have done tonight and as they've been peddling over recent months, that it's hugely problematic that Nottingham City Council, as an institution, sits on the best part of £800 million debt, I'll be the first person to say that I absolutely accept why that creates anxiety for people who live in Gedling about the potential that they may find themselves in a new council, not that's expanded Nottingham City or taken over by Nottingham City, but that is part of the current geography that makes up Nottingham City. But I just say this to those people as well. What should also create significant anxiety for the people who live in our borough is that there is a county council, Nottinghamshire County Council, that sits on £461 million worth of debt. And what you don't hear people on that side of the chamber talking about is the debt that they presided over while they were in charge of Nottingham County Council. And it's all right, Councillor Adams, saying that the blessed people of Rushcliffe being forced potentially into Nottingham City will find themselves under inadequate services in children's services. What you don't hear him talk about is the fact that Nottinghamshire County Council, currently ran by Reform, previously ran for 8 years by the Conservatives, presided over inadequate SEND services, where children were widespreadly being failed by Nottinghamshire County Council. You don't hear him talk about the fact that Nottinghamshire County Council is one of the worst county councils in the country in terms of presiding over roads. So what I want to see out of this debate, Mr Mayor, and I'll finish on this point, is a sensible, pragmatic approach that gets the best result for Gedling residents, Gedling businesses, the people who live here and call this our home. And I think the recommendations set out tonight, and I commend the Leader of the Council, this is not an easy job, this is not an enviable task. There's an incumbency on us to listen to the residents' anxieties, and there are anxieties that have been expressed, but to get the best possible deal that we can. And I think the recommendations that are set out tonight allow maximum flexibility in negotiation to the Leader of the Council and the Chief Executive, which is what we need given that we are not yet at the end of the process.
Thank you, Councillor Payne.
And
That's
we
the
also
end.
need maximum consultation with our residents.
Thank you, Councillor Payne. Are there any more comments or questions on this item? Councillor Clark to close then, please.
Yeah, thanks, Mr Mayor. I've heard it all, but
No, you've already spoken.
I've listened to it. You could go on for hours discussing the fors and against, but there are two new authorities coming. We're going to get that. There's no doubt in that, and we have to make whatever comes out of it. I personally, as you know, and I've made it quite clear publicly, I don't want to go with the city. I don't want to go anywhere near it. I want to see two new authorities come out of it, a North and South authority that will be better for the people of Nottinghamshire and better for the economic development. So, I mean, we've had a free vote, and that's great, because that's it, isn't it? People have got different opinions, so why not let people say about it? But there are concerns, I just mentioned there are concerns that I've been close to this, as Mike's been close to this, Chief Executive. When you're in some of these meetings, I haven't yet, I don't know if anybody's seen, I don't know whether you saw them, Russell, you mentioned it, about these plans for what's happening, and basically what I pick out of it, and I haven't seen the plans, Beeston, Hucknall, Arnold, Carlton, and I can't think of the one, there's one of the, West Bridgeford, would be snatched. And my concern is, because I represent all the people, no matter what political opinion they are, what happens to the rest? When asked of the Leader of the City Council, I don't care. And that really annoyed me. I don't care. We have a duty of care. Everybody that's sat on seats in this chamber has a duty of care, no matter what the political persuasions are of people out there in the borough or districts or whatever you like to call it, county. We have a duty of care to those people. We cannot abandon those people. The deprivation in North and Notts is extremely bad, as it is in parts of the city. So hopefully you'll support this. It'll move on to the next stage. And then we'll come back to, as far as I know, we'll come back, because it's a changing feast all the time, Mr Mayor. It will come back later in the summer. But if you look at the timescale, we've spent over 6 months now, and it's been a lot of hours, a lot of what candles burn, looking at, reading it, trying to understand it all, and trying to get some document that the government won't turn around and just say, that's a load of rubbish, you'll do what we want to do. We've got to present it, and then we've got, and as in, we're fortunate to have two MPs in Gedling. Hopefully, they will be supporting the best thing for Gedling. But I'd move to the vote, Mr Mayor, because I think everybody's said their point, and move on to the next stage. Thank you.
Councillor Smith, indicating for a named vote.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. And agreeing with everything the Leader of the Council has just said, can I ask for a named vote, please?
Is there a seconder? Councillor Elliott, thank you. So I'm now going to move to the Chief Executive, who will read out the names of members.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. So just to be clear, this vote is for the original proposal as set out in the report. Councillor Adams.
For.
Councillor Roy Allen.
For.
Madam Deputy Mayor. For. Councillor Beswick.
For.
Councillor Brocklebank.
Abstain.
Councillor Clark. For. Councillor Creamer.
Abstain.
Councillor Duncan. For. Councillor Elliott. For. Councillor David Ellis.
Abstain.
Councillor Rachel Ellis.
Abstain.
Councillor Elwood.
For.
Councillor Fox.
For.
Councillor Greensmith.
For.
Councillor Hughes. Councillor Hunt. Councillor Maltby.
4.
Councillor Ron McCrossan. Councillor Viv McCrossan. Councillor Mead, sorry earlier.
4.
Councillor Paling, not here. Councillor Payne.
4.
Councillor Pearson. Councillor Pickering.
4.
Councillor Catherine Pope.
Abstain.
Councillor Graham Pope.
Abstain.
Mr Mayor.
4.
Councillor Scroggy. Sorry. 4. Councillor Martin Smith.
4.
Councillor Sam Smith.
4.
Councillor Strong.
Abstain.
Councillor Towsey Hinton. 4. Councillor Walker. Councillor Wheeler.
4.
Councillor Whiting. Councillor Wilkinson.
Abstain.
Mr Mayor, the vote is carried.
Thank you very much. That's the end of the business of the council. That item is carried. As this is the only item, I will now formally close the meeting. So thank you very much, members.
Members of the council, members of the public, please be upstanding for the worshipful the Mayor of Gedling.